Kindly settle down. I'm starting about 2 minutes before time so that I don't want to eat up into the actual time of the program. Before I call upon the distinguished speakers and the President MMA to deliver the formal welcome address, let me quickly go through what's happening in MMA next few days so that if you have missed it, uh, reading the mail in your inbox so that you don't miss the event by any chance. On 22nd, we have Read and Grow, that is tomorrow. We have another interesting book because as we think, we strongly believe you to be a great leader, you have to be a great reader. That's the concept of this program, and mainly we do it more for MBA students and the management professionals. The book which is going to be discussed tomorrow is The Lean Startup, How Constant Innovation Creates Radically Successful Business. And this is a book which is written by Eric. So please do come. We got again outstanding panel. Then on 27th January, again a very interesting event. Nari Sakti is an Indian woman take center stage. It's again an interesting program, not to be missed. We have Arundhati Bhattacharya, former State Bank chairman. She is now the chairperson of Salesforce. She is going to be there talking along with him. N. Kumar, chairman of Sanma Group, Uma Ganesh, Pooja Sharma Goyal of GTT Foundation, Pooja Sharma Goyal. Again, we have Anushka Ravishankar, is a co-founder of Duckbill, Ganesh Nadarajan. We have an outstanding panel. This is also, I think, Vicky Flo also joined as one of the partner. Because Nari Shakti, you must see that how Indian woman has taken the center stage in many of the areas. You will get some inspiring stories. It's happening 27th of January, this place in live, it is in person. Then on 31st, again, an interesting event, which most of you look forward every time annually. This is V. Narayanan Pond's Memorial Endowment Lecture. We have got Mr. Ramesh Srinivasan, Senior Partner, McKinsey and Company, New York, USA. He's going to be talking on a very, very important subject, the journey of leadership. And he's going to bring out some interesting input. And Atul Vora is advisor and professor and brand ambassador. He is also coming from USA. He'll be leading the conversation. This is happening on 31st. At the same place at 6 o'clock. Then on 7th February, we have a competition for young managers. Then on 7th February, again, we have an event on play to the potential, lead your full life to become best in you, to bring the best in you. We got Deepak Jayaraman, is author, leadership coach. I am Ahmedabad. He's going to be talking to us on 7th. On 12th, again, we have our MMA annual convention. MMA Foundation for Building a Resilient India. It's happening at Taj Coromandel. Thanks to President MMA, the participation at the convention is highly subsidized. We charge only some 2,500 rupees as against some 8,000 rupees you spend per delegate. We can take maximum about 650 delegates. We already have 400 delegates confirmed. So if anybody is interested, especially individual members, if you are not registered, you don't want to, not to worry, it's live webcast. We are the only people who webcast the convention live. We never get scared that if you webcast, nobody will come. It doesn't happen. The more we webcast, I get more people want to come and meet because we have got some outstanding speakers. And you will really enjoy, especially the last session of the day is stress, managing resilient of mental brain. And we have 3 outstanding speakers who are going to be talking to us. One is the Commando, who really saved 185 lives in 26/11 attack on Taj Coromandel. Taj, not Taj Coromandel, Taj Mumbai, 26/11 attack. He is going to be there. He took 4 bullet shots. Then still they continue to operate, and throughout the night, next 2 nights, with the bullet injury, he is saved and is still injured, still working. After handicap, and he's going to be here in person to share his say. Like that, we have got some outstanding people all through. It's already been sent to you by mail. You can watch the website. It should be not to be missed convention. And this is happening on 12th Feb at Hotel Taj Coromandel, Chennai. Then we again Read and Grow. It's happening on the 18th of Feb. Another interesting book, The Principles and Practice of Coaching and Leadership. Then on 28th Feb, again, we have an very, very interesting. I think too many coaching is happening. Again, is coaching your leaders. This is a book where Ganesh Challa is going to be there. We collaborate with Coaching Foundation of India. What we discuss is actual role play is going to be there. We have a lot of books where people come and tell you, Gyan, how to use coaching, how to be mentoring and all. Here we are going to create a role play on stage, how actually managers should deal with the subordinates under different circumstances. I think it's going to be very interesting. So I think there are so many programs lined up till end of March, but let me now come back to today's program. We are all indeed privileged to have with us one of the finest program for us, and really many of you are looking forward. Viewers online also looking forward. Discussion on the book Unlocking Wealth: Secrets to Getting Rich at Any Age. By the time you read this book only, you are really telling, oh my God, this is a book for me. But doesn't happen so easily. But listen to the gentleman who is going to share with you something. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hand together to welcome distinguished speaker for this evening, Mr. Rohit Sarin, author, co-founder of Client Associates. Along with him, we have Chandu Nair, entrepreneur, advisor, facilitator. Then also we have Mr. Nagappan, founder, trustee, Foundation for Financial Freedom, independent director, and also past president of Hindustan. May I request you please take your place on the dais. Ladies and gentlemen, very, very warm round. Before we move on further, let me have the privilege of requesting Mr. Mali, President MMA, to deliver the formal welcome address. May I have Mr. Mali's AV, please.
Mr. K. Mahalingam is the president of MMA and partner director of TSM Group of Companies with over 35 years of leadership experience. A graduate of NIT Trichy and IIM Calcutta, he transformed T.S. Mahalingam and Sons into a leading automobile aftermarket brand and diversified into financial services, real estate, and angel investing. Mr. Mahalingam pioneered third-party loan distribution in collaboration with Citibank. An active mentor and investor, he supports aspiring entrepreneurs through the Chennai Angels.
Good evening, everybody. It's lovely weather in Chennai. Good to see all of you here. I think it's going to be one enriching evening. Is that right? I'm taking a leaf out of Chandu's book. Warm welcome to all of you. It's indeed my pleasure, privilege to welcome the members and invitees to this very special discussion on unlocking wealth, secrets to getting rich at any age. I think we have a wide range of age groups here, so I think it's going to be relevant to everybody. By Mr. Rohit Sarin. It is my pleasure to welcome this evening Mr. Rohit Sarin, author and co-founder, Client Associates, who has come all the way from Delhi for this evening. Thank you so much, Mr. Rohit Sarin. I'm sure you're finding Chennai a little warmer, both in hospitality and in weather. It must be freezing in Delhi by now, I'm sure. Very low temperature. Thanks. By the way, Mr. Rohit Sarin, I think we'll have a more detailed introduction later, is a pioneer in multifamily offices in India. And what I understand, he has close to $6 billion, 50,000 crores of assets under management. So we're really privileged to have him here, Mr. Rohit Sarin. It's really our honor to have you here. Thank you so much. Then my dear friend Chandu Nair, who has a way not only with words, but investments as well. He's a great angel investor. I've been closely associated with him in angel investments, and I can tell you on record that he's one of the shrewdest investors in the early stage that I've seen. I'm sure he's an investor in other parts of the investment space also, but I know him very well in the angel investment space. So I think one of those few angel investors who actually make good returns and consistently too. Thanks, Chandu, for doing this for us. And Mr. Nagappan, I think you have somebody who's got the big picture in Mr. Rohit Sarin and the angel investment, other investment, Chandu, and I think nobody knows the markets as well as Mr. Nagappan does. Thank you. He's so often on TV. So we are privileged to have him in private instead of through public broadcast. Thank you, Mr. Nagappan, for doing this for us, I think. Thank you so much. And for the benefit, I think we have to talk a little about Madras Management Association. I think founded in 1956, a few numbers, basically 10 chapters, 8,000 members, 14 times consecutively the best local management association in the country, All India, awarded by All India Management Association. All these numbers and all that I mentioned possible largely to this person, Mr. Group Captain Vijay Kumar and his team. I think we should, all of us jokingly or even seriously say that it's so nice to be president of Madras Management Association because all the hard work is done by Group Captain Vijay Kumar, and we can come and make these nice speeches. Thank you, Group Captain. Thank you so much. Creating wealth is something all of us aspire to, but most of us don't know how to do that. I think because all of us are very good at our own personal domains, like what we do as professions or businesses. And most of us, as a business person, I've always been tempted to put back all the money I make into my business. Though I wanted to create independently, and early days of investments before I started getting some advice, it used to depend on either put money in deposits or on tips on friends from the stock market. And I can tell you honestly, every time I entered the stock market, I burnt my fingers in the 90s and 2000s. So I think many of us go through this experience. It's important to have a structured approach and not be ad hoc about it. And you don't have to be entirely safe with deposits or be adventurous with what. I think people like Mr. Sarin and Mr. Nagappan and Chandu will tell you how to invest safely and still make much better returns than you would otherwise. I think they bring structure and discipline into it. I think wealth creation is not only important for you, for the family, but for the country as well. So it's important. This evening is going to be of great relevance and importance to us, and the takeaways will be not just academic, but very practical. I think Mr. Sarin's book talks of why wealth creation is important and not necessarily difficult. So if we could use a word that even people like me who are not well versed at it would understand what to do and how to do. Thank you again, Mr. Sarin, for doing this for us. Mr. Sarin's book, I don't know how many of you have read. Is the book available here, Mr. Sarin? Yeah, it's available here. So I think it's something all of you should look at. And as I mentioned before, it's well thought out, presented in simple words and simple terms. All of you should get to read it. And I'm sure Mr. Sarin will bring out examples and what he brought out in the book also for that. And for all of you who want to pick this up, I think it should be available at the end of the session. And I think we're going to launch the book here also at the end of this. Okay. Finally, I think I don't want to waste any time because time is money with this kind of group of people there. As I said earlier, we'll be just not richer in knowledge and wisdom, but hopefully we'll make that wisdom and knowledge make all of us richer in wealth as well. Thank you and welcome again.
Now, actually, we'll have the launch of the book, and we can have the book. Gentlemen, may I request you to step forward? You launch the book, then thereafter. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Sarin, for doing us the honor to host the thing. And before we move forward, let me have the privilege of introducing the distinguished panel for this evening. May I have the AV, please?
Mr. Chandu Nair is an entrepreneur, advisor, and facilitator with expertise in business development, entrepreneurship, and cross-border M&A tech deals. A co-founder of Scope E-Knowledge Center, he is an independent director at Shankara Building Products, an executive committee member of the Chennai Angels, and an investor in healthcare and social impact funds. Mr. Chandu also teaches at business schools and writes on startups and entrepreneurship. Mr. Nagappan is a gold medalist MBA graduate, founding trustee of the Foundation for Financial Freedom and independent director at Sasvitha Home Finance Limited. A former president of the Hindustan Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Nagappan has served in leadership roles with SEBI, Madras Stock Exchange, and Tamil Nadu SPSUs. An author, educator, and Rotarian, he is passionate about financial literacy, economic policy, and community development. Mr. Rohit Sarin is an author and co-founder of Client Associates, India's first multifamily office firm managing 50,000 rupee plus crores for 1,100 plus wealthy families. A banker turned entrepreneur, he has nearly 3 decades of experience in wealth management. Under his leadership, the firm has won numerous awards and employs over 250 professionals across 9 cities in India. Mr. Rohit has gained invaluable insights into creating, protecting, and multiplying wealth while working with India's top wealth owners and creators. Mr. Rohit believes entrepreneurship is the surest way to give back to society, driven by the purpose of leaving the world richer than we inherited.
Gentlemen, that's a profile of the speakers for this evening. We are going to have a feast of a time, knowledge, and as usual, all the viewers watching the program online, if you have any question, there are numbers on your screen. Please send your question. We'll place and only restrict your question to the theme what is being discussed for this evening. As usual, the format, I think after the author's address, Mr. Chandu will be leading the conversation with the special invitee and the author. Over to Mr. Rohit. Over to Chandu.
Thank you everyone, good evening, and we are going to start off this evening. The thing about making money is that it is one, harder than it, sometimes it is easier than it looks, and sometimes it's harder than it seems, number one. Number two, I think after you get the money, the trouble is how to keep the money. The third thing is how to grow that money. And the fourth thing then is how to transmit that money. If I understood right, the aspects that you talked about in your book are creation, protection, growth and enhancement. But instead of Mike trying to steal his thunder, and because I'm also still a teacher, one of the things I found even today when I teach, even at leading institutes, is that the teacher has to sometimes again give some of the case facts to the audience, something like Passenger-fied Tair Sadam. So my request to Passenger-fied Tair Sadam, by the way, is pre-digested kind of, pre-mixed curd rice. So what I would request our author today is to give the audience a quick insight into the book and some nuggets from the book so that we can kick off the discussion with a better context.
Thank you, Mr. Chandu Nair. First of all, I'm sitting in the middle, flanked by two very distinguished, guests. I can call them friends now, Nagappan and Chandu Nair. So I couldn't be feeling more assured and more secure in the august company on both the sides. Thank you very much, Mr. Mahalingam and Captain Vijay, for giving me this honor, and to all the esteemed members and the guests who have taken the trouble to attend this session today evening. I'm really grateful to all of you. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Kicking off, can't be a better way to kick off with a brief snapshot about the book. And so let me first share with you what was the motivation behind writing this book. Why did I embark upon this project and how did this happen? So publishers of this book, the LF Book Company, they are one of the very distinguished publishing house of India, an associate company of Rupa Publishing, and they publish authors like Shashi Tharoor, Ira Makhoti and more. And they've known me for a long time, and they were actually encouraging me that, Rohit, there is a book inside you and you must do this project. And, as an entrepreneur, when you're busy building a business, you feel that it's not a priority. But finally, when they approached me in September of 23, I decided to take the bait that, let me do this and let me stop procrastinating. And this is the time for it to happen. And the reason, my motivation at that point in time was because of the work that I do. And because of the nature of the work that I do, the kind of people that I meet and the kind of data that I see, increasingly over the years, I'm coming to believe that the next 10 years of India could be India's best years in this entire century. And I'll give you a very simple high school mathematics, which is very easy to understand for everybody in India. We all know that our economy is growing on an average 6 to 7% every year. Some years, maybe 8%, some years, maybe 6%. On an average, 6 to 7%. Then add to that the inflation of our country, which is now on an average, we can say safely about 5%. So in nominal terms, real growth of 6 to 7 plus inflation, about 11 to 12% is what our GDP is growing every year. Now, if you do a simple high school maths and you compound the GDP by, say, 11 to 12% every year, over 10 years, it will become 3x. Right? At this rate at which our country is growing, by the collective hard work of every Indian in this country, our country's GDP will simply become 3x 10 years down the line. Now, what does that mean? when a country's growth happens, it's an average growth of the classroom, right? Of a classroom. There would be certain businesses which will be above average performers. They will become 4x. There will be some businesses which will be performers. They will become 5x during these 10 years. And there will be some businesses which will be outstanding performers. They could grow 6 to 7 times over a 10-year period. Now, this is a growth phase. So when the growth happens, what happens? It creates jobs and it creates affluence for the society. So I thought that the timing couldn't be better to convey whatever little I've learned in my journey as a wealth entrepreneur for the last 25 years. I've been a student of wealth, working with incredible wealth creators of our country, that what goes into creation of wealth. That I thought there is a book, which should be written and must be written for every Indian, because this is a time for every Indian to think of being a wealth creator. This was reason number one, the mathematical reason. Then there was a reason which had a bit of a chemistry also behind it, and it says that in India, thankfully not now as much, but 20 years back, wealth as a subject used to be a taboo. Anybody who wanted to create wealth was seen that he or she is like a money-minded person. So wealth creation was not seen as a very noble objective, right? And I thought that mindset shift has to happen in our country. If we have to become wealthy, we have to become wealth creators. So the timing is this, where India is going to become whatever business anybody in this room is doing, big and small, doesn't matter. If you are running it well, it has the potential to grow 5, 6, 7 times in next 10 years. That is going to happen just by the market expansion. And if we have a mindset towards growth, towards creation of wealth, we all can become wealth creators in our own respect. So I thought the combination of these two reasons, the mathematical opportunity and the reason that we don't discourage wealth creation, this is the time to write a book for every Indian, which can then share the insight, which I have the privilege of learning because of the work that I do. That was the motivation. And then when the publishers, the first time they sat with me, they asked with me that, Rohit, share the concept of the book. And then I shared the concept of the book. Then they say, okay, now make the structure of the book. So there were 3 parts I kind of thought that the book should be useful to the reader. The first part talks about why wealth. Why wealth is important, because as Indians, as a society, first of all, we need to answer that question. We need to build conviction why wealth is important for each one of us, right? So the first part of the book talks about, why wealth is important for an individual and why wealth is important for individuals, societies and countries all over the world. And I've used some anecdotal evidence, some very simple data from all over the world, which all of us can very easily relate with and understand to drive home the point that why wealth is important for everybody. Then the section 2 talks about, these, I call it the laws of wealth creation. These are some of the principles which I've learned as I mentioned, as a student of wealth, working with some of the best, finest wealth creators of this country, that what goes into creation of wealth. And I put together some of those principles which are, very eminently relatable and also implementable in our lives. If we can bring that into our lives, all of us can be wealth creators. So that the second section talks about what are the laws of wealth creation, right? So that we can become informed wealth creators. And now the third section, now you've created wealth. Now you have an additional responsibility in life to take care of that wealth. So it then talks about how do you protect and grow that wealth, which is part 3. So those are the laws which I mentioned there, which talks about laws of keeping and growing wealth. Now, because, if you can't keep wealth which you have created, there's no point creating it, right? If you're going to become bankrupt after becoming a billionaire, what's the point of becoming a billionaire? So the third section talks about that, at the end of the day, your wealth, my wealth is also a subset of the national wealth, right? If we fritter away our wealth, we destroy our wealth, any individual, family, business destroys wealth, it's a national loss also. So the third section with that spirit talks about that now you are an owner of a wealth, how you should protect it and continue to compound it. So that is broadly the reason why I wrote this. I embarked upon this project, and that's the broad structure of the book for you. We can kick off from here now.
Okay, one of the things that you talked about is this mindset of wealth creation. Okay, when you define this mindset of wealth creation, what do you find? You've seen so many clients, many of them have created wealth, but on average, a lot of people find it difficult to create that wealth. Why is it? Because of a scarcity mindset? Is it because of circumstances? What exactly creates that mindset of abundance or feeling that, I can create wealth? And probably then I'll move to Mr. Nagappan to talk from his lived experiences as a stockbroker and stock analyst.
No, very good question, Chandu. Thank you for asking this. And so I have a very different and interesting perspective on this. We know it's obvious, we live in a country which is not an affluent country. I would call it a middle income, lower middle income country with a per capita income touching now $2,700. We still have a long way to go. But still, there are brilliant case studies, very, very inspiring case studies in a country where people came from very humble backgrounds and they have become possibly the richest families of our country. I can give the name, I've given mention the names of these people also, like Mr. Dhirubhai Ambani. He studied only till 8th standard and he used to work at a petrol gas station, not even in India, right? So there are several such a case studies and examples. So many of them are there, in our country, which, by their own sheer desire to grow, they were able to create wealth. So I think it's a mindset. If you've already thought that, I'm poor and I have limited resources, I've got a limited access, I cannot be a wealth creator, sure be it, you will never be a wealth creator. But if you have decided that, irrespective of the circumstances, I am going to be a wealth creator, you will be a wealth creator. So it begins with a thought, it begins with your mind, and everything else, thought leads to an idea, idea leads to an action, action leads to destiny. So I think that seed, whether I am poor, I cannot be a wealth creator, or irrespective, I am poor, I will be a wealth creator, that creates a difference between whether you will be a wealth creator or not.
One of the things you mentioned, Nagappan, is that you are also, one of your mission is to improve financial literacy. And part of this mindset business is this financial literacy. What do you find are the stumbling blocks that most people have, in India particularly, in getting to a place where they understand money and they're really able to do something about creating wealth, therefore?
I think it's all, I'll put it down to two things. One is the mindset. There's a mental block that I can't understand numbers. I think this book is a very good example. You could hardly come across a book on personal finance most of the books have a lot of numbers, confuse you and all. This book is very strong in the, conceptually it is very strong. It talks about that. Of course, it has got numbers, comparison of gold and all. So I think one is there is a mental block, and that mental block comes along with the ecosystem in which you grow. You could have seen there are in certain places, geographical areas, you can see that people are, even when they are in a high school or a college, they are into business and they are into wealth creation. This is one part. The second part is that why do I need to create wealth? There are two reasons. One is for me, myself. The second part, as Mr. Sarin was mentioning, it's for the greater cause. So once your ecosystem, your family teaches you that you need more wealth. See, the first question I ask myself is, why should I create wealth? I have enough wealth for the last so many decades. But myself have enough wealth for the last so many decades. Not because I'm very rich. I have much more than what I need. Simple. So I'm rich by that way. But then I need to create more wealth if I am a good fellow. If I am a good person. If I am a good person, the money should come to more good people so that it can again plow back into the society. I think people, if they understand these two things and remove that mental block on number crunching, and I think that should change the mindset. That's what I feel personally.
Okay, I'll continue on this topic. One of the things you mentioned, Mr. Sarin, is this distinction between hunger and greed. Hunger gives you kind of purpose, whereas greed is likely to be destructive, wealth destruction, over a longer period. But how does one know, because this always a fine distinction, for example, between concern and control. Similarly, the very fine distinction between hunger and greed. How does one know that one is no longer hungry but become greedy? How does one, get into that hungry state of mind and stay there?
No, in fact, you also picked up a question on this chapter, and I am asked a lot of questions on this chapter because I think this is one chapter which is intrigued most of the readers. And there are very nice insights in it, which I have learned over the years, and I wanted to share it with the society. So I think contrary to perception that there is a very thin line between hunger and greed, as per my understanding, there is a very fine line between hunger and greed. And I'll tell you where the difference lies. See, hunger is a mindset where you're focused and driven, passionate, whatever words you want to say about input, about your karma, what you're supposed to do. For example, I've given, I think, an anecdotal evidence of a case of a doctor, who's very passionate about healing, right? And greed is something which is, somebody who's passionate and driven about the output, right? So also the same doctor, then he's very passionate and driven by that, how much his revenue is growing. He's more focused how much billing he has done rather than how many people he's healed, right? Now, in the short term, person who may be greedy will definitely the graph may grow faster than somebody who's hungry. But over a period of time, somebody who's hungry, who's actually eventually driven by a larger purpose, is able to build trust with the society and the ecosystem around, is then the graph actually takes over. And the character of greed actually then gets identified and the trust breaks down and that person starts falling down. So I think there always will be a fine line, not a thin line between hunger and greed. So if you stay focused on your purpose, you will always stay focused on what you're supposed to do. Even if you're running a business which is for profit, at the end of the day, every business, is solving some problem for the society, for which the society is willing to pay you. As simple as that, that is a transportation services, right? Getting from point A to point B in a city, and we take either the public transport or using our transport, and we are ready to pay those businesses for solving that problem for us. So if a business is focused on continuing to solve that problem for more and more consumers on the planet, it will scale. And in the process of scaling and solving problem for millions of people, it will end up creating wealth. But if the business is only focused on maximizing their quarter-on-quarter profit so that the stock price continues to grow, then they will start doing stuff, which will end up compromising for the purpose they are in business, and eventually it will catch up with them. So I think there's a very, very fine line between hunger and greed, and eventually I've seen that entrepreneurs and wealth creators, whether they were inheritors or first generation wealth creators, I've seen that they were very much focused on continuing to solve the problem for the society, because that used to give them a kick. And then how can I solve this problem not for 10 people but 10 million people? That is how they used to convert a small business into an institution and leading to wealth creation.
Okay, that's fine when you talk of a business person, but a lot of people here are employees. They are in jobs, where they get only a fixed income. And also then they have an issue of time. People today talk of 70 hour, 90 hour, etc. You wonder when you get time even to go to the bathroom. Forget about creating wealth. So in such a situation, what does that employee do? How does that employee break out of this trap of trying to create something where he or she can create wealth?
Very good question. And in fact, I would like to say, and I've mentioned anecdotes in the book also, and I'll also share one or two of them here with everybody, that the basic concept, whether you're running a business and adding value to the society, or you're working within a business as an employee and adding value to the business, is the same. At the end of the day, you're solving some problem, either as a business owner or an entrepreneur or as an employee of that business or that enterprise. You're solving some problem because of which the stakeholders are willing to pay you. Like if you're an employee, you're working for an organization, you're helping the organization grow. You're solving the problem for the shareholders, for the management, and the management is willing to pay you for it. Not only pay you for it, but also continue to expand your role. And I've given examples of that, how people have grown in their careers. Many a times, people like in my organization, outside, in friends and family, they'll come and seek, career advice. And my simple thing to them is that the simplest way to having the finest career is continue to build trust with your stakeholders. Deliver value for them. If you are not just, not just even delivering value what you are expected to, but exceeding on that, won't any employee in any organization become invaluable for that organization? Why will that organization let that employee go? Rather, that employee will get greater responsibility, and as your responsibilities grow, your compensation grows. That's how you end up creating wealth within the organization. And the best example which I can share is, the current Tata Group chairman. He's an example. He comes without any pedigree from the family. He comes from a simple background, went to a school village, comes from a humble background, and he's the only person in entire history of the Tata Group, non-member from the family to helm the group. And why it has happened? Because over 4 decades of his journey, with the group, he earned the trust with the stakeholders, and his job continued to, he became the TCS chairman, and eventually when the situation came, there was nobody else, with the group, the stakeholders sitting at the top of the pyramid of that group could think of other than him, than Mr. Chandra. And he's a brilliant case study. He came from the humblest of the backgrounds like most of us Indians. He was not at all born with a silver spoon, but he's earned it as an employee, and he's a fabulous wealth creator of this country.
Nagappan, I want to ask you the question in a little more philosophical and also in a twisted way. A lot of people today think, that there are shortcuts to financial success. Okay, you've seen it. Usually the movie ends badly. But on the other side, they see certain kinds of people, netas, babus, whatever, amassing huge, disproportionate amounts of wealth in a very short span of time. How does one tell a youngster or anybody else, look, buddy, this is go by the straight and narrow path. This is how you build a career. This is how you can build wealth. Why should you take these kind of shortcuts? How does one bring that value system or that, discipline and not get them tempted into some other way?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a utopian thought, but very difficult, I can tell you that. But I think things are, we are changing a lot, and I think that it all comes from, the earlier question, hunger and greed. It's easy to satiate somebody else's hunger also, but it's very difficult to satiate my greed. The greed comes in when I start not living for myself, but when I start living for others. And for that, I have to earn a lot. I have to, all the show off, everything comes in. And that's where you're talking about Babus. But why Babus? Even the top CEOs, if you look at the study which is published today, the last employee, to get the salary of the CEO, I think it takes 500 years. That's a study which says, in a big corporates, the top 200 Nifty top 200 companies, they have studied 110 companies, and they say that the median salary of somebody, for him to reach the salary of the CEO, it will take another 500 years with the thing. So that's the kind of the wealth creation which is happening at top level and outside the system. This is within the system, that outside the system is what you're talking about. So it's a big challenge when we go and talk about all these things. I think the family system, the ecosystem is also indirectly has to be corrected a lot. Unless otherwise that happens, it's very difficult. You see a set of people flashy and spending a lot of money and earning, sitting on huge cash. And the other side, we are talking ethics and other things to people who are at a lower level in a company or something. It's going to be a very tough challenge, I feel. I don't think there is any ready-made answer. It comes within, it comes from the family than the society. Yeah.
Okay, I'll come back to you both again. One of the things, I worked in a company called Asian Paints. Factoid is that it was the highest compounding stock in the history of the stock market. So unfortunately, I didn't invest in that stock at that time. I would have probably made more money in the stock than working for the company. But that aside, one of the things that struck me when I worked in Surat in Gujarat is that many of these people have got multiple ways of making money. I find the mercantile communities, he also belongs to one, have figured out a system. Mm-hmm. Even Kiyosaki talks about it in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that how do you create a system to make money? So most of us are like plumbers, carpenters, even doctors who go every day and have to make money. If we don't go that day, we don't get that money. Okay? But how to create that system? What is it that changes the dynamic, Can you get into a little bit of the plumbing, the how-to of these things,
Yeah, so why don't we, pick up the example that you've given, somebody who's doing plumbing, right? And let us say a daily wage, these are the people who look for daily assignments and their kitchen runs on the basis of their daily earnings.
Housekeeping announcement, may I request everybody to keep this little device on silent, at least, okay, thank you.
Yeah, so going back to the example of, let us say, an electrician or a plumber, and these people, they are not daily wage workers, but they are daily wage earners. So on a daily basis, whatever they earn and their kitchen runs on that basis. But I would say that that's the start of the journey. The system which runs is that eventually wealth creation is a function of your ability to add value at scale, right? So if you are only providing service only as an individual by yourself, then you are kind of limited, you've kind of saturated your scalability. So then, even in that segment, we have seen examples. I've seen it, you have seen it, that people become contractors. Contractors of today were erstwhile when they started the career, they were electricians themselves, they were doing the plumbing job themselves. But, over a period of time, they were smarter and they had the hunger to grow, and they put together a team. They grew beyond themselves. They bought another plumber, they got a civil guy, an electrical guy, and they started taking contracts. And by adding more resources, around themselves, what they did, they actually enhanced their ability to add value to more and more customers. So that led to the growth in the size of the volume of the business that they're handling, right? And because of that, they were able to increase the earning. Then what that individual was earning solo as a one skill guy, and here he's earning collectively as a team head, right? So I've seen many such organic examples. I'm sure everybody in the room has also seen many such examples, because there is no dearth of work, in our country. As our economy is growing, there are more and more services. The demand for services is actually growing. The market size is growing. We as service providers, we need to have a vision for that and align our hunger to meet that increasing growing market demand and increase our ability and resources to scale the amount of value addition which you are making. So I think any business, whether it's a Nation Paint or it's a solo who can then form a team, is able to scale, will be able to enhance their own earnings, at their own level. So even for a plumber whose earnings is 25,000 rupees a month, if he's able to grow 4x 1 lakh, it's a massive jump for them. For them at that segment, it's a wealth creation.
I want to ask you the same question and also bring in the approach of certain mercantile communities of which you are a part also, and bring that flavor also into this discussion.
See, if you look at, we interact with some self-help groups, women self-help group, and we also teach them about the financial discipline and all. Now, in a small village near Kadalur, there is a self-help group, and nearby town there is a bank. The bank goes and tells them that we will lend you money, let's say 50,000 rupees each, 20 people. And only 8 or 10 of them need money, the rest don't need money. So the bank itself tells them that don't worry, you invest this in our mutual fund. And what is the return will you give? They say we'll give you 1% per month. And I know, I'm sure only many of you have invested, know which mutual fund I'm talking about. They used to give 1% per month, 12% per annum. That the moment market started coming down, the NAV will start coming down. And this is not the way. So we go and tell them, plug the leakages. Don't do this kind of things, and where you lose your money, where you don't, So this is one thing at lower level, at a entry, the people at the BPL families are taken for a ride like this by big banks. So there we have to educate them. There is a lot of financial literacy to be done. This is one thing. Now, where I come from is, like you rightly said, I was mentioning about the same ecosystem where I come from. So, when we were brought up at a very young age itself, I remember what my father used to tell me, that a very popular saying, we all know that a penny saved is a penny earned. But he'll say that's wrong. He'll say a penny saved is a penny earned plus the interest on it year after year. So that's the difference. We are, the moment we spend that 1 rupee, we are not only spending that 1 rupee, we are also spending the return on it future. So this is one thing which I think which is in our again and again. And second thing is that your financial literacy is as important as your school education or college education. There is not even once that my father will call and tell me that go and deposit this dividend warrant to the bank and come back. So I have to fill up the challan when I was about 12 or 13-year-old and go to the bank and come back. And I cannot say that tomorrow I have an exam. That's separate. This is also separate. So these are smaller things which we don't. Most of the typical middle class, you're talking about the salaried employees. You see that most of them fill up even the college application for their children. They fill up the application because they fear that the student may fill it up wrongly. So I think we have to make them responsible. And if they fail, it's a failure. They will come up. At the young age, they cannot, So there are a lot of learnings which we have learnt.
Okay, I think I'll just get into one aspect. Both of you can probably chip in. One of the things that I've seen, and having experienced it personally, is that barring the mercantile communities to some extent, most Indians, again, probably almost everyone here can agree or disagree, they're not logical about money, they're more emotional about money. So even discussions within the family on money are not pleasant. They are not amicable. They are not like logical. They are not rational. Yes or no? Okay. So very, very vague and it leads to always some kind of problems. Now, how do you tackle this? How do you, in order for things to really grow, I found that one has to stop being emotional and start being lots more rational and logical. How does one get the family aligned overall? Because without that, how much ever you try individually, nothing is going to happen. How do you get that? And I'll come to you.
Yeah. No, this is such an important topic, which, I'm so thankful that you asked this, because this is important for every Indian, not only everybody in this room, I would say every Indian. And because I've seen this, what Chandu just mentioned out of my profession, that, this topic of financial literacy is one thing which Nagappan does. That's itself is a challenge. The topic of financial discussion never comes up in the family. If we are dealing with our clients, it's only maybe one member of the family who's dealing with that. The spouse is not interested, first of all. And then this gentleman is also not interested to pull, which is not a right thing, because tomorrow if something happens to this gentleman, then what about the continuity of knowledge about the legacy of the family? Right? So to everybody, at least to begin with in this room, my advice and suggestion would be that, start involving your life partner, to begin with, if nobody else in your family, about the awareness of whatever you have, small or big, doesn't matter. But that awareness has to be there so that, your family, the continuity of financial management is not challenged. Secondly, even children. I would suggest that, when your children, when they've come to a certain age, when they've completed their education, they've started their career, involve them. Make them aware that what all is there, because tomorrow they are the next generation of the family. And you have to, and the legacy of the family, big and small, again, doesn't matter. It's a responsibility for the next generation to take over the baton and carry on. How can you expect them to do that without involving them? So there's a bit of a succession planning has to happen there also. We talk of succession planning in businesses, right? Business continuity and all, you would have heard of, Chandu and Nagappan. We talk about it. What about, continuity in the family? So this is something culturally we have to address, and I see, lot many families have started opening up and talking about it, which is a good trend, but a lot more has to happen.
Nagappan, I'm going to ask the same question, but with a twist again. It's great. He's talking about a nuclear family, papa, mama, 2 kids, etc. You know how your community has families with extended branches. The discussion becomes even more challenging. And if one guy gets married, then the discussion becomes even about how many bags of rice go to which house and why. Okay, it goes even into that direction. How does one tackle it over there also? In a larger family, extended, multiple arms, what does one do to make the discussion sane and practical?
I think the problem becomes much simpler in huge, large families, because the mindset is they listen to the leader, they listen to the person. In the smaller families, 3 or 4 of us, nuclear families, it becomes extremely difficult. That's what I feel. I feel a little different about it. But then, as I said, again, the way we were brought up, the wealth is never shown off until you go to the college. You will be treated like as though you're from a low middle class family. That's how you're brought up. You don't know how much of wealth you possess. Suddenly you realize when you finish your degree that you have so much of wealth, and why my father brought me up like this. So, but by the time you're used to a simple lifestyle, the moment you get used to simple lifestyle, in fact, Sarin has mentioned in his book, I think, the difference between wants and needs. So the wants are, we are justifying all wants are our basic needs. That's a problem today. The father, the mother, there is a competition between the children, the society, neighborhood, that all the wants are becoming needs and essential, and that's why we live more for others, and that becomes very expensive. The moment we live for ourselves, like Mark Zuckerberg, we need only 4 t-shirts and a jeans. That's all. We don't need much more than that.
Okay, I just want to let the audience know that, group captain, if there are any questions, please give it to the slip out here and give it via group captain. And if there are any questions from online, you can please share it. I also want to figure out, from you, you have been an investor and you have been an advisor. like the 7 deadly sins generally, what would you say are the keys? Are there equivalent of 7 deadly sins of wealth creation and management? And if so, what are they?
In wealth creation.
Wealth creation,
Not management,
whatever.
okay. First of all, I think that we should understand everything starts with earnings. And if earnings should come in, we should have the necessary skill sets. And today, the skill sets are lacking in many places. And some of us, he knows that, we have to keep ourselves updated continuously. CPE, it's always there once in 2-3 years. My certificate is not valid more than 3 years. So I have to keep myself updated and develop the skill set. My ambition is this here and my skill sets are here. There is no match between the two. Once I have the skill set, then that brings in the earning part of it. Then once we earn, I think that the next thing is to challenge is to the needs versus wants and how to control your expenditure so that you start saving at a very young age. And as I said, the earlier one, a penny saved is not a penny saved alone, the penny saved with the interest on it. So that's what makes a compounding effect. And then the very important thing is on spending. Now there is a tremendous social pressure with the mobile apps and all those things, the e-commerce, on quick commerce and all these things. So that poses really a challenge because earlier you have to go to a shop, buy, there is a time gap between your thought process and then actually implementing it. But today it is not there. Within 10 minutes I get my, if I want a new mouse or something, anything I want, I get it within 10-15 minutes. So that makes me spend more. So how to tackle that? That's a very big challenge today because from the society which had a practice of delayed gratification, you save and then spend. From delayed gratification, we have now moved to BNPL, buy now, pay later. Now that's going to be a major challenge.
So from your side, one of the questions that have come up from Saumitra from Trichy online is, what are the most common misconceptions people have about wealth creation and how does the book address it? We'll come to the compounding question later because I think though it sounds simple, it is not as simple as it sounds.
So I think the most common misconception, and because of which this book has been written, which is around wealth, is that I cannot be a wealth creator. And I can tell you that everybody can have their own very good reasons why they believe that they cannot be a wealth creator. Even if you are at a young age, you say, okay, I come from a humble background, so my access is limited, my resources are restricted, right? So everybody can, even at a young age of 20, teenage, you can convince yourself that I cannot be a wealth creator. And even at age 60, you can convince yourself now it's too late in life. I should have learned about this 30 years back. It's too late in life. I can tell you that thankfully society is living longer. At least I see amongst my friends and all, parents are touching 90, right? So there's always the other side of belief, right? So at every age, the biggest misconception is that, I cannot be a wealth creator. And that is the first section of the book which tries to address that everybody can be a wealth creator, irrespective of your stage, segment of the society that you come from, doesn't matter. If you believe you can be a wealth creator, you can be a wealth creator. There's no restriction, and there are enough case studies, inspiring case studies, which our country offers to convince us about that.
Both of you, there's another similar question from another lady, again online in Trichy, which is again, I think a lot of people have this block or an inability to figure out how exactly to go about doing this. So the question is, how can the middle class, often constrained by limited disposable income, participate in and benefit from India's wealth creation story? Would you like to go first?
Yeah. See, we all know work expands to fill up the time available. Same thing with the expenditure also. The expenses increase, to fill up the money available. So you will keep justifying every expenditure. So I think you have to understand that part of it. Then I think automatically we will start saving more and by spending less. And that's a starting point. You should be convinced and your family should be convinced. It's very important. You brought out a very important point. Most of the cases, the problem is, you go to a financial literacy program, you conduct a program like this, only the man of the house will come. You won't hardly find the housewife.
By the way, in this audience, there are only 8 ladies.
No, I think little, yeah. So this is a challenge because you convince a guy, but it's a big challenge for him to go and convince a lady and the children. Tell them that you can manage with the phone, which is about 15,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees. It's very difficult today to tell them that they all want the cult phone. So that's where the start. See, the moment at a very young age, around 20, you get used to the best of the phone, the best of the laptop, best of the whatever, the pad or whatever it is. It doesn't stop with that. You're going to replace it once in 3 years, which means in another 50 years, you're going to buy at least about, 10 times or 15 or 20 times, you're going to buy a phone, you're going to replace a laptop, you're going to replace a car. So you're not committing that 5 or 10 lakhs for that once in a lifetime, like when I bought my first Ambassador car. That was for the 30 years I bought it. But today you replace it every 3 years, which means you're committing for crores and crores of money, and we call ourselves middle class. I'm talking about the typical middle class, which commit so much of money, and they call themselves middle class. And they're not able to, they can create wealth, they can attract money if they really want to. I'm not talking about the BPL families or lower middle class. The typical middle class can create.
There is people in this room.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay, one of the things I want to now bring into play is this issue, like we talked about the future value and how small drops, like an SIP kind of thing, can actually lead to fairly large outcomes over a longer term period. Two things here. One is how to make people feel that delayed gratification is okay. And that's probably a better way to, live life, number one. Number two, how to get that discipline to last that distance. What kind of temptation should one avoid or not succumb to?
Yeah, so here then, I'll like to talk a little bit about the concept of compounding, which the book also talks about. So I think that is what the motivation of delayed gratification is, to basically realize the benefits of compounding. Everybody in this room would have heard of the gentleman called Warren Buffett. He's in his 90s. And Nagappan will know that most of his net worth actually is earned after the age 60. Yeah. Because he's actually living on a compounding effect of more than 50 years. We see Warren Buffett today as one of the global top 10 richest people. But that has happened over a journey of, more than 50, 60 years of compounding. So that is delayed gratification. So how to do each one of us? You see, in this country, the most popular saving instrument, till a few years back before SIPs took over, used to be the recurring deposit of the post office, the good old post office. Because it was there, every post office branch was there, not only in small towns and cities, in every village, right? So every Indian used to just go and save. They used to have an account there at the post office and do a recurring deposit every month, right? So at the end of the day, what Indians we were doing, we were paying ourselves, right? When you're earning something, suppose you're earning 100 rupees, then of course you have your own expenses. First meet your expenses to live a good life, whatever basic plus decent life. Then whatever is left, pay that to yourself. That is called savings. Just keep accumulating, and that over a period, keep doing it for over next 10 years, 15 years, 20, 25 years. That accumulation will just surprise you that, what kind of a corpus it has grown into. Simple mathematical example. If you are growing your investments at 15% per annum, which is eminently possible if you're investing in a growth asset class like listed equities, especially when India is growing, 15% compounding in 5 years, your money doubles. 10 years, it becomes 4 times. 25 years, it becomes 33 times. From 10 years, 4 times, another 15 years, it becomes 33 times. So that's the power of compounding, which, Mr. Warren Buffett has contributed to his, wealth, and which is what I think all of us need to do, because always whatever is left, it doesn't mean that whatever we're earning, we have to spend everything. Spend on your needs and maybe a little bit of wants, which gives you joy and happiness, whatever. But then whatever if you can save after that, keep accumulating, set it aside, let it grow at 15%. Take advantage or benefit from the hard work being done by so many Indians, which is contributing to the growth of the economy, culminating into a 15% compounded growth rate in an equity asset class for next 25 years. All of us will be eminently rich than what we are today.
You have been in financial literacy. All this sounds nice, this compounding, etc. But when you actually tell people, one of the two things I found, one is a lot of people, like in traffic, we have this illusion of activity. That if we feel if you are not moving in traffic, that we are not moving ahead at all. Sometimes, don't you feel it's better to stick in your lane? You might actually go faster. Similarly, in investing, they say time in the market is better than timing the market. Number one. Number two, fill it, shut it, forget it. That is, many times don't do anything is a good strategy. I'm just asking you, because you are in financial literacy, how does one get people into a discipline, showing that, look, if you put this 10 rupees, you save, like for example, when I was in Calcutta, I had a choice between taking a cab, $5, or taking the tram, 35 paise at that time. That gives you a reflection of my age. But it tells you the difference on a day-to-day basis, okay? And the simple reason was in a month it accumulates to so much, and that's actually savings. But how does one educate and convince fellows and then get them into the discipline of doing it? I'm talking again about the how.
See, until they see the benefits of it. Of course, they are seeing it nowadays. They read a lot of books and they see that the outcome of it. But still, it takes a lot of time, but a lot of conviction is needed. And one thing I beg to differ a little bit is that the fill it, shut it, and forget it. I think that's a thing of the past because of a lot of technological changes which is happening at least in case of stock markets and market-related instruments. You have to be very careful because things keep changing. Technology keeps changing very fast. And we had floppy disk becoming more severe, CD-ROM, and then from there pen drive, and then today everything is in cloud. So if you bought the share a company which makes floppy disk, you're nowhere. So things keep changing, so you have to monitor it, but not on a day-to-day basis or on a weekly basis. A reasonable interval, you have to monitor it. But the point, what you're trying to say is that how to convince a person that the discipline pays. I think it is only by constantly educating them and the financial literacy only can help them. And that should not happen only for the man, but the entire family. And that's why if you look at it, not many people, I think some people sitting in this room may know that, but government is taking a lot of initiative in that regard. All the 4 regulators, if you go to the IRDS website, you can see very interesting comics and cartoons on the importance of insurance. Not only in English, also on vernacular, in many other languages. Same thing with SEBI. You go to SEBI's website, you have a lot of investors for the school children, for the college students, for the housewife. At a different angle, they have looked at it and different perspective, and very simple language they have put it. It's a very basic, for beginners, and also NASM has done a good job. NCFE, National Center for Financial Education, they have done it. And RBI has come out with one of the pioneers 15 years back. They have come out with such books and all those things. So a lot of content is available, but people are not taking it, and it's not reaching out to them. I think that way, once if you're able to touch a card on that person, then the change automatically happens. I've seen it. Suddenly, the moment they use these calculators, financial calculators online, they suddenly realize that I'm nowhere. What will I be after 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line? And I always tell the people to sit with the family and do that. The goal-based planning, we discuss about goal-based planning. So what are your top 5 goals in your life? And involve the family in that goal and then ask them to do this, use this calculator and do the job. Then they will come and tell you that don't spend this money, don't be careful with it. Otherwise, it's very difficult.
Person asks almost very, aggressively, I don't know, maybe I'm reading from this tone. What you said is for the old generation. New and next generation is different. The dink segment is growing. We are all living separately from our parents. We have much more challenges, much more different issues. So for this new generation, will all what you say work?
Yeah. DANK, you're talking about DANK. Yeah. Okay.
All understood.
Yeah. That makes the job much easier, so you have to plan only for yourself, not for the family.
There is also something called single income, no kid.
Single income, no kid, sink. No, that makes, see, one thing you should understand is that the joint family system had its own advantages, and without, if you don't have it, it doesn't, you lack. And most of us fight with our neighbors, and we don't have a good cordial relationship if you are in a big city like this. So that leaves you with a lot of difficulty, because I always say that you push your children to IIT, then IIM, then he goes to US and Harvard or somewhere he settles down. And when you have a chest pain, then you have to call your neighbor, with whom you already have a problem. So I think you have to create a right kind of ecosystem, not only in monetary terms, but Chandu used to say philosophically, I'm telling very practically that you should be creating such kind of a ecosystem. If you are, the new generation, I could tell you that.
No, if I could add to that, so, what your observation is saying is, very interesting and very right also. But, the generation of your parents, they at least, most likely, they would have worked for a government or a quasi-government organization, right? By virtue of that, they would have got something called a PF corpus, because it was a forced saving, forced compounding, which happened over a period of time. And when they retire, they also have some corpus coming to them and also some pension coming to them. Now, Dings, as you're saying, and this is a phenomenon, first of all, you're living independently. So the support system of the joint families is no more there to protect you or cushion you. Secondly, you have to build your own PF corpus. Because, at least in your parents' generation, there was a forced saving which happened for 40 years of their working life. In this generation, where is it happening? And expenses have gone up. So all the more reason that you need to start paying yourself like your parents did 40 years back from today for next 40 years. If not 40, at least 20, 25 years. Right? So that is a very important, thought which I would like to leave you with, that it is all the more important for the younger generation to have financial discipline.
Yeah, because just to add to that, the social security is almost, in a country like India, it's almost nil for a typical middle class, or if you're in a MSME business, it's very difficult. As long as you make
covered by 7th or 8th pay commission.
Yeah. As long as you make money, you pay taxes. The moment you stop making money, then there is nobody to take care of you. This is one thing. And, I remember when I joined my first job, I was told by my boss that you will never be suspended or dismissed from this company. You will be retiring from this company unless otherwise you do some fraudulent activities. Can any company tell you this today when you join? You don't know. Hire and fire. So as you get 10 times the salary of what I was getting when I joined my first job. Today, my son gets 10 times or 15 times or 20 times of the salary. But then the job is not assured. There is no job guarantee. It can be. And meanwhile, what happens is this generation, we get used to, don't think I'm blaming this generation, because the generation has its own advantages also. They're much more confident than many of us now, my generation. But that's why they keep spending a lot, because they know that they can somehow make this money. But there is a danger is that in this meanwhile, you get used to, like a dopamine effect, you get used to spending more and a different lifestyle. And suddenly when the job goes and you don't have a fallback or backup, or you don't have enough savings, then it leads to a lot of psychological problems. So it becomes more important that you have, because you don't have parents or the joint family system to fall back. So it becomes more important.
One of the interesting things I found also, that I went one workshop by one Swamiji, and he said, you spend half your life earning your wealth, then you spend more than half your wealth trying to get back your health. Okay. So, and people say health is wealth. So when you're talking about wealth creation, and keeping yourself also, how do you balance it? Because one of the things that other people say also, there's a famous incident about Kurt Vonnegut, one novelist. And he and the other author were waiting for the third best-selling author. And the fellow told him, what? He told Kurt, the guy who's coming, what you earned all through your lifetime, this guy earns in 1 year. So that guy replied to him saying, I have one thing that he doesn't. He said, what? Enough. So 2 questions. One is, when do you say it is enough? Okay. Number 2, how do you balance this health, family, social connections, and what you might define as success with creation of just wealth? I'm getting a little philosophical here, but with a very good reason.
Yeah. No. I think this is a very practical philosophy, and I think that. So I'll touch upon two things, connected to this question of yours, Chandu. One is so two milestones when it comes to wealth creation. There are two important milestones for every individual. The first milestone is when I would be financially free. When I will be financially free, which means that when will I have enough wealth, which basically will be that size of wealth which will take care of all my needs as seen today for the rest of my life. So this is my lifestyle costs, the education, funding of my children, weddings, so on, traveling, whatever. As seen today, if I want to continue to live like this for the rest of my life, how much wealth I need for my life goals. So that is financial planning part, which should tell you that when will I be financially free, financially independent. The second goal is that once I've achieved that, then how much wealth should I create in life? Suppose, that goal somebody achieves 20 years down the line and one is still 60 years of age. Should one hang the boots and say, okay, now I'm financially free and I have nothing else to do? The answer to that is no. Wealth creation goal can be an endless goal. And the reason for that is because, see, wealth beyond your financial needs becomes just a number. If you're creating, then God is giving you more than you need, and then that wealth you can utilize to do good to those who do not have as much as they need, right? Which is doing good to the society, which is for philanthropic activities. And I've known, very, very inspiring personalities. One of them, Mr. Ashok Soota, I've mentioned in the book also. He's 83-year-old, and he became an entrepreneur at the age of 68. When he have Mindtree and all, and then his happiest mind he created later on, and he has no family, he never married. So I asked him, what is your motivation? He says, wealth is an endless goal because I am building these educational institutions, for the weaker sections of the society, and for which eventually this wealth will be left in the ecosystem and I'll be leaving a better world, right? So if you have that goal, then wealth creation becomes a limitless goal. Because eventually, see, you have God has been kind to you, it has given you what you need. Now, after that, if you're hale and hearty, continue, till the last day of your life, continue to be a wealth creator. Why should you stop?
What's your take on it? Because, in your case, I remember meeting a young entrepreneur from the community. And he said to me, I asked him, what's your approach to wealth? He said, 1/3 is in the business. 1/3 is in fixed assets, which cannot be alienated, which means I can enjoy it, but I cannot alienate it. Okay. And 1/3, I have flexibility, I can put it into financial assets. So I said, wow, I wish I had known this when I was 20 or 21 or 22 when I started working. So if you were to look at it from the same point of view, what would you tell people, in terms of what should that approach be? What should this philosophy be? What should your purpose be?
No, I agree with the first three, but it is not three, actually it is four, 25% each. The last 25% is on charity. So I think that is very important. And you go around Chennai, you can see you go to the Adayar Cancer Institute, the most of the kind of contribution done by people who have come down to Tamil Nadu and settled down. You can see what kind of contribution they have done to build up those accommodations and institutions and all. I think many people, the schools, the colleges, built in Chennai. So I think the moment you know the purpose, there is a saying, you die twice. The first time is when you actually die. The second time is the last person who remembers you dies. So there are people who don't die at all. You look at Dr. Alagappa Chettiar in Ginti Engineering College, his statue is there. Nobody will forget him. You look at many such eminent people here. The people will never forget them because they never die. So once you know that purpose and then you move towards it, I think then you achieve your goal and a sense of satisfaction comes, and you'll not be worried too much about it.
We are coming to the last 10 minutes, so I'll get into a couple of quick questions because people are asking about what are the, I have 100 rupees today, okay, which is surplus to me. Where should I put that 100 rupees? And why should I put it where you say I should put it?
Okay, so I'll picking up a cue on the one word you mentioned that this gentleman said that if I have surplus. So I assume that this is a surplus which you don't need at least for next 10 years in your life, right? So I'm just taking the liberty of that assumption. If you have that time on your side, go and invest that into a growth asset class like equities, right? Listed equities, don't buy stocks yourself. Either give it to a professional who does it for a living like an active manager, or just buy simply an index fund if you don't want to do that. But don't pick stocks yourself because, as Nagappan also mentioned, that active management in the time and the age we are living in very dynamic times, right? So if we cannot monitor the businesses we have invested in ourselves, then we need to outsource that expertise to somebody who does it for a living. So give it and, ride on India's growth story. There's so many Indians, as I mentioned, they are doing an exceptionally good job. They're working hard. They're growing their businesses at 20% per annum. And their hard work will bear fruits for your savings also over 10 years.
So suppose somebody is not of the type who has a 10, 15-year horizon or is little risk averse and doesn't like equities, okay? What would you recommend to such a person, him or her?
So risk averse is a good point. And so see, the theoretical way of looking this would be that, how much risk averse you are. So you put so much in fixed income and so much in equities. But let us say with time period, practically you see how this plays out. You see, longer the time period, equity will always outperform fixed income. So maybe over a 1 year time period, the probability of fixed income may outperforming equities is higher. But over a 10 year, the likelihood of equities outperforming fixed income is much, much higher. And that leads to opportunity loss in compounding. For example, you kept your money in a bond, which is going to give you, let us say, a 7% return. During the same 10-year period, the equities would have given you 15% CAGR. So that the opportunity loss in compounding of 7% CAGR could be huge on your savings. So if you have time on your side, then just go for compounding at the best possible rate of return which you can, because you don't need that money. And then how to deal with your risk appetite is then don't look at the volatility of that asset class on a month-on-month, even a year-on-year basis. Because some years will be very good for equities, some years will not be good for equities. Keep reminding yourself, this is my retirement corpus, I'm going to retire after 10 years, and that's when I'm going to see the value. Then that risk aversion will not bother you. Yeah, so that's the way to deal with risk aversion, as I understand. Maybe you want to add something.
Nagappan, I just want to ask you, you are a kind of an anachronism in one sense. In these days of Zerodha and Grow, you still are an offline stockbroker. People wonder what's the relevance of an offline stockbroker in this day and age. But you still have a growing set of customers. Can you just tell us what exactly do you do for your customers that makes them stick to the straight and narrow, and how do you, as an individual or as a trusted advisor, make sure that they are able to do much better than they did if they were on their own?
Yeah, no, it's a hybrid model. We still have a mobile app and we have online trading and also offline, it's there. See, we come from a background where when I started my career, stockbroking was not a business. Not many people may know this. Stockbroking it is like a practice, like if you are a chartered accountant, you have to surrender your certificate and start this. And as a stockbroker, they will inspect my office, and if my name board is above 2 feet by 1.5 feet, they will penalize me. I'm not supposed to advertise. I'm not supposed to promote my business. That's how stockbroking was. And I'm supposed to work under a senior for 2 years. With the certificate only, I can become a stockbroker. So we still carry that ethics, and we have a lot of people still around, and we do that, and we interact with people. I always felt that there is a space for hybrid model. Not everyone is very familiar with technology, and not everybody, generally people think that high net worth individuals or ultra high net worth individuals are, they use technological products much, but then they want to interact with, an advisor like somebody like us. So that's one area where there is still a lot of space there. And you can read, a lot of online people are doing quite a lot of good work. If you look at the university, it's a very great deal of work they've done. No, I'm not undermining that. But then there is also a need in a country where, I remember the data of Investment Company Institute long time back, about 50% of the Americans invest in equity. This is about 25 years back. And 48% of their investment goes into equity, or more than that. But at that point of time, because of that 401k and all. But today we are from 4 crore demat account in 2020, we have 18 crore demat account within the next 4 years we've got. Where? So I think there is a long way to go, but I think this is a lot of growth is happening here. Yeah.
Okay, so a couple of questions. There are these new creatures which in India still not recognized, but even the latest president of the United States created his own crypto, and in a couple of days itself it's run into a few billion. So how, for the benefit of this audience, couple of things. There are so many asset classes today. It's a bewildering array. If I were to look at it, apart from the equities, and the equities also come in so many forms. Your mutual funds, hybrids, your PMSs, you have direct equity, you have unlisted equity, so many formats of equity. Now you have this new creature also, which is, plus you have other things like REITs, AIFs, and so on and so forth. I don't want to get into the whole khichdi. But now the new creature, which is crypto. A lot of the youngsters have got into this, like a lot of youngsters have got into F&O, and 95% of F&O guys haven't made money. With all this kind of thing, with this new and, shiny attractions, how do you tell everybody to still stick to a certain kind of a philosophy?
Yeah, so I think it's the same, the good old, age-old classic principles apply to crypto also, which apply to any other asset class. And those rules have been ancient rules, they will never change. So what is an asset class? So asset class could be real estate, could be equities, within equities, listed equities, private equity, could be gold, could be fixed income. These are different asset classes, right? And how do the prices of these asset classes they behave? They are a function of demand and supply. Real estate also, over a period of time, more demand, less supply, prices go up. Likewise, equities also, they mirror the growth of the profits in the companies, their demand will go up. Gold also, we know how much, some data is available about that asset class, that how much production happens, gold production every year, and who's buying on the demand side. There is some logical assessment you can make on that asset class. Crypto is one asset class which is like a black hole. There is no data available on the supply and demand side. So very difficult to make an assessment of that asset class, first of all. So see, as wealth managers, anything which we cannot objectively analyze, we would wish to stay away from it, because then it becomes in the zone of speculation. And we don't want our clients to come close to speculation, because the element of surprise resulting into risk could be very, very high. Secondly, there are certain things which are naturally working against crypto, which is the central banks. It's a competition to central banks. So central banks of the world, actually, they will never allow a crypto to become a mainframe currency. Like in India, RBI also doesn't allow it. Because how will they control or navigate the monetary policy? Like the government of the day, fiscal policy, how will they do that? Because governments and central banks across countries, across the world, they navigate their economies through these policies. Crypto, they will not be able to control. So I think there's a natural barrier to the growth of cryptos. What is happening in the US is because of sentiment, because of Mr. Trump and Mr. Musk, who are kind of given their weight behind it. But I can't analyze with the demand and supply. If I can't analyze, I would not like to advise my clients for it. As simple as that.
Yeah, just to add to that. Have you ever thought 20-25 years back that the prices of diamond will never go up? Or will it come down? It has come down. Lab-grown diamonds have come. We don't know the similar thing can happen to gold tomorrow. We don't know if they, speed up the process of chemical changes. We don't know about crypto also. So I like Bitcoin, not all the cryptos, but then I don't trade in it because, not because I don't like it or anything, but it is not at all regulated. Where do I go if I have a problem? So it is absolutely, there is no regulation put in place, so it's very dangerous to trade in we already have problem trading in something which is regulated. Why do you trade in something unregulated?
Okay, so we've covered a whole lot of ground, starting with ourselves and how we can create wealth for ourselves and our families. We covered our families, we have covered extended families, we have covered to some extent asset classes, we have covered to some extent new creatures like crypto, regulatory issues, etc. Creating wealth is I think, to summarize what Mr. Sarin has written and what Mr. Nagappan has also stressed, I think we're living at a fantastic cusp of a beautiful opportunity in India. I think the next 10 years, potentially, if we play our cards well, especially all of us here in this room and online, we can potentially see a huge increase in our collective wealth. And I think that collective wealth will be good, not only for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, but also for the nation as a whole. And with that, let me take you back to the organizers, group captain. Back to you. First and foremost, let me also thank the two panelists, Mr. Sarin, for their insights. Back to you, group captain.
Thank you, Chandu. And over 800 viewers are watching the program live. A lot of questions have come. I mean, I shared only a few with them. And I know you can buy the book. The book is available outside. You'll get a special prize. Buy the book. I'm quite sure most of you who attended gone more wiser, gone more wisdom, go and share with your spouse and then get into trouble. That is later. Do that first. And may I request Chandu to please step forward. Other dignitaries do this honor of presenting a book. Maybe Sundaram and Ramesh can join. Come, you want to?